Shadow of the Colossus is one of my favorite games of all time for many reasons, but mainly because even to this day, I've never really experienced anything quite like it. I mean, if I really had to sum this game up in one sentence, I'd call it a glorified boss mode with a dash of world exploration thrown in, but that's not necessarily a bad thing here, as there's a little more to it than that, but those are just the main points of the game summed up in a single sentence. But I'll go into more detail about that in just a bit, though. Anyhow, the story, for starters, is simple but very good nonetheless. It's essentially about a guy whose name is never disclosed, who wants to bring a girl he loves back to life, and he travels to this mystical, magical place and strikes a deal with some shadow figures, kills 16 gigantic motherfuckers, and she springs back to life, but there's a bit of a catch in between. But, I mean, that's it. There's no real background story on the main characters. There's a bit of a background story about the place you're in, and a little touch-up on the sword that you have, but nothing really else. The game just lines you up and says, go to it, but not before treating you to a couple lengthy FMVs, which are actually really well done. They're nice and relaxing, the music matches the scenery perfectly, and all in all, the story is actually really good for what little there is. And then, after everything's outlined, you're pretty much on your way. Alright, so let's be on our way to track down and kill the first Colossi. So let's get on our horse. Yeah, this is one of the few complaints I have about the game, is that getting on the horse can be a little tricky at times, and that you have to repeatedly tap X to keep it going at a steady clip. So anyways, what's this game all about? Well, you're in this gigantic world, and you need to track down and kill 16 Colossi, one at a time. And to track down the Colossi you're trying to find, you simply hold your sword up in a well-lit area, and a beam of light will be created. And the narrower it gets, that's more likely the direction, or that's more likely where the Colossi is. And once the controller vibrates, that's the exact direction he's in. So, as you see, the draw distance in this game is absolutely immense. This is a PlayStation 2 game, upscaled for the PlayStation 3 no less, and this is actually a very good conversion. I'll get more to that later. But you have free reign of the world. You don't have to go and kill these Colossi. You can just explore. I mean, there's nothing out there. There's no other weapons to find, no other enemies to fight in between, no real puzzles to solve, nothing. Absolutely nothing. You just hunt down and kill 16 Colossi, and that's pretty much the entire game right there. Now, of course, finding the Colossi will get more and more difficult as you progress through the game, but, I mean, that's essentially it. But the draw distance is immense. The graphics were absolutely amazing when this game was first released, and they're still not half bad today. That's thanks in part to a really good conversion, but yeah, in between you might have to go through, like, jumping puzzles, I guess. I mean, if you want to call them puzzles, I just call them jumping segments. You might have to go through jumping segments. You might have to pull some weight, you know, to reach the Colossi. It might take a bit of effort. I mean, that in a sense can actually be considered part of the overall fight, is figuring out how to get to the Colossi. Figuring out how to get onto the Colossi is a whole nother ordeal. And yes, I'm talking as I'm playing this too, so this is being done a little freeform, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, just watch, I guess. We're almost at the Colossi, don't worry. But trust me, you first-timers playing through this, oh, you think this segment's tough? Wait till you play some of the Colossi later on in the game. I mean, just getting to them is a chore and a half. But you know what? That's part of the fun. And here's our first Colossi. Meh. He's a little big. They do get bigger, by the way. So, this is only the tip of the iceberg. Though, they don't get bigger and bigger and bigger until they get to be like the size of the whole fucking map. No, they definitely change. Though some Colossi will repeat themselves somewhat, somewhere down the line. But Eventually you'll fight Colossi that can fly, that can swim underwater, and trust me, the first time you encounter an underwater Colossi, that fight is particularly tricky. So, how are we gonna get up this gigantic motherfucker? Because what you have to do to kill these things is you have to literally climb onto the Colossi as they're trying to shake you off, find a mark on their body, and stab it till they die. And the mark on many Colossi will disappear and reappear at another portion of their body. But here's how you kill this one particular son of a bitch. You can only climb up the fur. You can't, like, climb on solid stone, for crying out loud. I mean, like, you can grab the ledges, but you're not a frickin' spider. You can't climb up solid walls. So you stab him in the leg a couple times, and he falls. And notice how the music changes, too, as the battle progresses. This is actually my favorite track in the soundtrack. Soundtrack in this game is phenomenal. But, essentially, you just keep climbing. And watch that little grip meter in the lower right-hand corner. Trust me, you do not want to fall off the Colossi and have to start all over again. It is a pain in the fucking ass. Luckily, I got this one on the first try. And trust me, this can be very, very daunting for first-time players. I know I was completely overwhelmed my first time playing through this. Admittedly, though, I had a friend by my side who had played through the whole game and had told me how to kill the first 5 Colossi. Bit of a cheat sheet. Until I told him to shut the fuck up. Because I wanted to figure out how to kill them on my own, but... You know, this game is just fantastic. I mean, yeah, people could say it's a little shallow, people could say it's boring, but really, I think some of those folks just miss the point. I mean, this game is awesome. Trying to get to the Colossi, trying to get on the Colossi, and trying to kill the damn thing, that's a challenge all on its own. And I've always been up for a good challenge in games. And the game will offer you little hints if you're struggling, but most of the time you'll be left to figure it out on your own, especially in the later levels. And that's it. First Colossi is dead. And that's pretty much what the whole game is, what you just witnessed right there. I'd show you some of the later Colossi, but I really don't want to spoil it for you. I mean, do I recommend getting this? Absolutely. Whether you play it on the PlayStation 2 or 3, you know, I recommend the Shadow of the Colossus and Ico collection, or Eco, however the hell you pronounce it, but, I mean, if you only got access to a PS2, hell, the PS2 version's still good. Now trying to run away from this black licorice, whatever the hell it is. But yeah, that's the whole game right there. So, anyways, let's go to the console differences now, or the differences between the two versions. So, getting down to the differences between the PlayStation 2 and 3 version, owing many thanks to an absolutely fantastic, faithful conversion from the PlayStation 2 console, the PlayStation 3 version of Shadow of the Colossus is fantastic. Every single texture in this game is razor sharp, all the jaded edges are gone, the frame rate is absolutely perfect. And that was one of my main complaints about the PlayStation 2 version of Shadow of the Colossus, was the jumpy frame rate. I mean, it could go anywhere from 60 frames per second all the way down to 15 frames per second. It wasn't unplayable by any means, but it was still there enough to be annoying, even if you played it in progressive scan on the PlayStation 2 version, which all this footage that you're seeing of the PlayStation 2 version is being played in progressive scan nonetheless. Hell, I even tried playing this on a backwards compatible PlayStation 3 and the frame rate issues still persisted. That has all been completely fixed. Aside of that, there aren't really any gameplay changes. The only real noticeable gameplay change I could pick out is when you deliver the final strike to a Colossi, how it slows down the strike for a split second, you know, just, I guess, to give the player a moment of satisfaction, of triumph or something like that, you know, just to glorify the moment. Whereas in the PlayStation 2 version, you're just like, nope, stab, die. But here it's just like, there you go, there's the killing strike. Congratulations, you just killed the Colossi, but getting a little nitpicky, if you ask me, considering that really sad music plays when a Colossi dies, you know, kind of like killing a beast or like killing nature or something like that, glorifying the final strike seems to kind of... The two of them kind of seem to contradict one another. I don't know if I'm just being overly nitpicky or not, but I mean, it's nothing really to scoff at. But aside of that, and the graphical enhancements, those are the only changes I can really point out. Though I will say this, the saving times and loading times still remain curiously long. Now, the Ico and Shadow of the Colossus collection does install game data on your hard drive, but it's only like 5 megs or something like that. But that too also raises an eyebrow, considering that if Team Ico took this much time and effort to have a completely faithful transfer, don't you think they could have shortened the load times a little bit? These are by no means game-killing flaws, absolutely not in the slightest, but it just makes me wonder, you know what I mean? Aside of that, I really have nothing else to say. I haven't played Ico yet, and I don't think I'm going to for a while. But my closing comments are this. If you haven't played Shadow of the Colossus yet, this is a perfect opportunity to experience this game, and even those of you that have played Shadow of the Colossus on the PlayStation 2, this is definitely worth checking it out, even if you just rent it. It's a chance to play Shadow of the Colossus with every single nuisance we had about that game completely removed. And that being said, either way you look at it, Shadow of the Colossus is just a unique, enticing game in general. I mean, when you really boil down to the main bottom line, it really is a glorified boss mode with a dash of world exploration thrown in it. But that's what makes it all the more unique, is that that's all there is. But the main depth of the gameplay is figuring out how to get to each Colossi and how to defeat each Colossi. And trust me, for all you first-time players, if you have no prior knowledge of how to defeat or find the Colossi, every single battle can take upwards of an hour. So, the defeat of each Colossi for first-time players definitely gives off a feeling of reward every time you slay one of the damn bastards. And no matter what system you play it on, I absolutely recommend checking it out, because Shadow of the Colossus is one of those games that rock.